They don't announce themselves. They don't come with a warning. They don't feel like manipulation when they're happening. They feel like a conversation, a decision you made, a silence that made you uncomfortable, a number that seemed reasonable. By the time you notice something shifted, it already did. 5 techniques, not theories, not academic concepts, mechanisms, precise, repeatable, and running in interactions you had today. Let's open the Codex. Technique 1. Covert manipulation. Most people think manipulation looks like pressure, like someone pushing you towards something you don't want. That's amateur manipulation. That's the kind that gets detected, resisted, and remembered. Covert manipulation looks like nothing at all. The mechanism is simple. Instead of pushing you toward an outcome, the operator removes every other option until only one remains, and then lets you choose it freely. You feel no pressure because there was none. You made the decision. It just happened to be the only decision available. This is how it operates in real life. A manager who wants you to volunteer for an undesirable project doesn't ask you directly. They mention it in a group setting where saying no creates social friction. They frame it as an opportunity, not a task. They've already made sure the people most likely to volunteer are unavailable. By the time it reaches you, the environment has been engineered so thoroughly that volunteering feels like your idea. You've been here, you've agreed to something, and walked away confused about why you said yes. Not because you were weak, because the options were curated before you arrived. The deploy. Engineer the environment before the conversation. Remove friction from the path you want taken. Add friction, social, logistical, emotional, to every other path. Then present the choice as free. The detect. When a decision feels obvious, ask what options were removed before you got there. Before we move to technique 2, covert manipulation works because you never saw it coming. The next technique works for the opposite reason. You see it coming, and it still works. Technique 2, reverse psychology. The brain has a defense mechanism called reactance. When it perceives that its freedom to choose is being threatened, it pushes back automatically without deliberation. Tell someone they can't have something and they want it more. Tell someone what to do and they resist. Reverse psychology is the deliberate activation of reactance to produce a desired behavior. The mechanism: you signal that you don't want someone to do the thing you actually want them to do. Their reactance kicks in. They do it to assert their autonomy. You get the outcome. In its basic form, it looks like this. A parent who wants a child to eat dinner doesn't say, "Eat your dinner." They say, "I don't think you can finish that." The child, to prove independence, finishes it. The parent wanted the same outcome. The child feels they chose it. This operates identically in adult environments. The negotiator who says, "I don't think this deal works for us. Honestly, you should probably pass," is activating reactance in the other party. The other party, suddenly perceiving that the opportunity might disappear, pushes to close. The negotiator never pushed at all. You felt this. Someone told you that something wasn't for you, wasn't your level, wasn't something you'd understand, wasn't worth your time, and you felt an immediate pull toward it. That pull was reactance. That pull was engineered. The deploy. When direct ask meets resistance, try withdrawal. Signal disinterest in the outcome you want. Make the other person feel that choosing it was their idea, their assertion of independence. The detect. When you suddenly want something more because someone suggested you shouldn't have it, pause. Ask who benefits from that desire. reactance is automatic. But it stops being automatic the moment you name it. There's a more precise version of this, one that doesn't work on instinct. It works on architecture. The next technique operates before the conversation even starts. Technique 3. Anchoring. The first number you hear in a negotiation becomes the reference point for every number that follows. The first adjective used to describe a person shapes how every subsequent piece of information about them is processed. The first frame applied to a situation determines what questions get asked and what options get considered. This is anchoring. And it's not subtle. The mechanism. The human brain doesn't evaluate information in absolute terms. It evaluates it relative to the first reference point it receives. Change the anchor. Change the perceived value of everything that follows. A product listed at $400, marked down to $200, feels like a deal. The same product listed at $200 from the start feels like its fair price. The product didn't change. The anchor did. This operates in every negotiation, every first impression, every conversation where someone frames the situation before you do. The person who speaks first in a salary negotiation sets the anchor. If they say the range is 60 to 80 and you were going to ask for 90, you've already lost ground. You're now negotiating against their number, not yours. The conversation was shaped before it started. You've been here. A conversation started and something felt off. Like you were already behind, already defending, already working within a frame you didn't set. That's anchoring. The frame was placed before you arrived. The deploy. Anchor first. Always. In negotiations, in first impressions, in how you frame a problem before presenting a solution. The person who sets the first reference point controls the geometry of everything that follows. The detect. Before engaging with any offer, proposal or framing, ask, what is the anchor here and who placed it? Reset to your own reference point before responding. The next technique is different. It doesn't work on the frame of the conversation. It works on the state of the person before the conversation begins. Technique 4. Emotional priming. Your brain doesn't process requests in a vacuum. It processes them through whatever emotional state it's currently in. The same request, delivered to the same person, produces different responses depending on whether that person feels grateful, threatened, relaxed, or obligated in the moment the request arrives. Emotional priming is the deliberate creation of an emotional state before making a request, so that the state does the work for you. The mechanism: engineer the emotional context. Make the request inside it. The state created before the ask shapes the answer. This is why salespeople build rapport before presenting price. Why negotiators make small requests before large ones. Why someone who just did you a favor is the ideal moment to ask for something in return. Not because of reciprocity, but because the emotional state of having just helped someone creates warmth, openness, and a temporary suspension of resistance. It operates in every direction. A colleague who needs your approval on a proposal doesn't send it during a stressful deadline. They wait until after a win, a completed project, a positive meeting, a moment when your state is open and receptive. The proposal didn't change. The emotional context did. You've been here. Someone asked you something at exactly the right moment, and you said yes more easily than you expected. The ask didn't earn that. Yes. The timing did. The state you were in when it arrived did. The deploy. Before any significant request, engineer the emotional state. Create a moment of warmth, gratitude, shared victory, or relief, and make the ask inside that window. The state created is the persuasion, the detect. When you're about to agree to something, identify your current emotional state. Ask, would I make this same decision if I were in a neutral state right now? One technique left, the simplest one, and the one most people are least equipped to use, because it requires doing nothing. Technique 5. Strategic silence. Silence is uncomfortable. The brain reads it as a void, and voids feel dangerous. They feel like disconnection, disapproval, unresolved tension. The automatic response to silence in a conversation is to fill it. And people fill silence with exactly what they were trying to withhold. The mechanism: say what you need to say, then stop. Don't elaborate. Don't soften. Don't fill the silence with qualifications, reassurances, or additional arguments. Let the void open. Wait for the other person to fill it. In negotiation, state your number. Then say nothing. The first person to speak after a price is named almost always concedes. The silence creates pressure, but only on the person who can't tolerate it. In conflict, ask the question that matters. Then be quiet. People don't confess, reveal, or concede to arguments. They confess, reveal, and concede to silence, because silence implies you already know, and they're simply confirming. In influence, make your point with precision, then stop. Every additional word you add after the core point weakens it. The point that lands and sits in silence is the point that gets processed. The point buried in elaboration is the point that gets forgotten. You've been here. You made your case, then kept talking. And somewhere in that talking, you undermined it. You gave the other person a way out you hadn't intended to give. The silence after a strong point isn't emptiness, it's pressure. And you released it. The deploy. Practice tolerance for silence. Make your point. Name your number. Ask your question. Then stop and let the void work. The discomfort you feel is the same discomfort the other person feels. But they will break first if you don't. The detect. Notice when someone goes quiet after you speak. That silence isn't agreement. It's a tool. Don't fill it. 5 techniques. None of them new. All of them operating in conversations you had this week. The people using them aren't more intelligent than you. They're not specially trained. They simply learn to see the architecture of interaction. The frame, the state, the timing, the void, as variables they can set rather than conditions they must accept. That's the entire difference. You now see the architecture. What you do with that is the only question that matters.